There are 35 days until the 2022 midterm elections, and apparently Governor Ron DeSantis, our Hades, never got the message that you do not wear white after Labor Day. With me today, resident expert nerd Avengers, joining me, Danielle Moody, Jen Taub. Jen, I want you to start with the boot thing because it's critically important to our chances of winning Florida in November.
As folks know, I can't, not have a move in my life without tweeting it out. So I tested positive yesterday for COVID, but luckily yesterday evening finally got on the Paxlovid. And yes, I understand. A lot of people think it's not necessary. Guess what? Always check with your own physician or a medical provider. And I have asthma and whatever other reason based on me decided it would be good. And the good news is I'm not in excruciating pain and I'm sitting up talking to you, which is a huge improvement from where I was yesterday before I got the medicine. So anyway,
well, I'm curious. I'm not entirely sure why you didn't take ivermectin. What's up with that?
Yeah, I have a stable full of horses here. So
okay. They need it more than you do. Okay.
But
you didn't try bleach or anything? You didn't do bleach? Or I heard that works too.
Don't swallow bleach. Do not take ivermectin. Yeah. We're just kidding. Do what your doctor says. Per Jen Taub.
This morning I decided that whatever I've been wearing for the last 24 hours needs to be changed. And so I put on some cozy pants. And that was, you can see, my Hello Kitty leggings. And when those were on and I saw that Ron DeSantis was walking around in mud boots that were white after Labor Day. First of all, what kind of waders would be white? Like
none.
Green. I mean, you're going through muck. But I thought that was so funny. And then I thought I did have these boots.
You're still wearing them.
And so I decided that how funny I should put them on and do a who wore it better. And I did that. I probably shouldn't have put it up, but the fever is still here. So
oh, that's good. Let's just blame the fever on everything.
Well, I mean, I do have a slight fever, but
I always blame everything on the fever, I should say.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's that. But I'm glad I'm getting better. And the doctor said, by the way, I've had 5 COVID vaccines. So, but the reason why you can still get COVID is, as he explained to me, the vaccines target a particular protein, which is probably the most dangerous or whatever one. I don't know. And so, in a way, he had just gotten it's going around my community. In some ways, at this point, getting it's kind of like getting a flu or a cold. I mean, I'm about as bad as I'm not as bad as I am right now as when I've gotten really bad bronchitis, but it's up there with a bad cold and kind of a bad bronchitis. But the only reason why, as I said, I took the other medicine is because of the asthma, and I just, I don't want to die.
Yeah. Listen, first of all, this PSA has been brought to you by Pfizer and Moderna. Listen, I also have quite bad asthma. I will do anything in my power not to get this thing because I also worry about long COVID. I'm getting my 3rd booster today after a week and a half of trying. They ran out of doses. But yeah, we're totally pro vaccine on this show. And just a reminder that 400 Americans keep dying every day. So all due respect, actually no respect at all. I generally have a great deal of respect for President Biden, but not in this particular instance. COVID isn't over. Right. And by saying it is, I think that we definitely tripped up the push to get the 3rd booster. Winter is coming. I don't mean to quote Game of Thrones, but winter is coming. And people are going to be going inside. So, nothing's over.
Yeah. I mean, I would say mask up. I mean, what my view is, there's this other thing is I have been pretty good until recently about saying, is that an event I need to go to? And if I'm around people I don't know, put a mask on. But I've been eating meals outside. If I ever go to a restaurant recently, I had several meals inside, and there's a lot of things I've done to take down my guard. And I think it's important to balance. And Mary, back to your thing about, Ron DeSantis was out there for a photo op. It kind of backfired. But here's the thing. If we're going to use
Randy Rambo has just joined the group.
This is a point.
Not sure why. Randy's welcome anytime, of course.
He's everybody.
though images to draw attention, it's okay. Then let's do this PSA thing. Like, in other words, and I think that, so I'm really glad that you're mentioning, I think it's important to think about masking up, really get the vaccine and get the flu shot, and be smart, just continue, I would say, continue being vigilant, and don't listen to your well-meaning friends who say things to you like, oh, I'm sure it's just a cold. Don't listen to anyone but yourself, your doctor, or your other healthcare provider.
Test.
Yes, a test is the real deal.
I think we should listen to Aaron Rodgers and Joe Rogan. I think that those are the people that we listen to. I'm kidding.
Well, those
do not
are
listen to them when it comes to
first
medical
on
advice.
the list, of course.
Can I just say something real quick, Mary? I'm so happy that. Well, I'm not happy that Jen has COVID. I wish you recovery. But I'm so happy that you're mentioning this because no one talks about COVID, even though it's an ongoing pandemic. Oh, I'm a little loud. Sorry. How's that?
Well, that was in the private chat for a reason, but if you want to talk about it openly, we can. I was just trying to be polite.
This is the problem. Daniel knows this. Anything you say to me, I'm like, I'm a little loud. Let me just. Daniel's like, no, it was meant.
I'm like, it was just between us.
Listen, listeners,
and he's like, Twitter.
The strategy session with the Nerd Avengers, we are pulling the curtain so you can see behind what, as Waj would say, how the meal was made.
How the meal was
made. How the meal was made. So good.
So Soledad O'Brien yesterday was like, how the sausage is cooked, and I'm like, how the meal is made? Don't you mean how the sausage is cooked? Sausage is made? I'm like, I'm Muslim. But real quick, all I want to say is, we have an immunosuppressed daughter. We have to be super careful. And I know not everyone cares because they don't have immunosuppressed people in their home. I get it. But I haven't gotten COVID yet. I don't even want a smidgen of COVID. I have healthy friends to this day who work young, work out. They got a little bit of COVID. They're still dealing with it. As Mary said, 400 people a day are dying. This new variant breaks through vaccines, as you've seen Jen right now, who's sick. The latest vaccine came out. Thank you, Mary, for getting it. I was going to get it, but, same thing. I went in person. They're like, you have to do it online. I'm like, crap. But please get it. And the fact that Joe Biden and the CDC, I mean, let's be honest, they really dropped the ball on this when they fired their magic gun a year and a half ago, right before Delta, and said, take off the masks. Once you did that, it was over. And now people don't wear masks. I mean, I've traveled a lot. Mary, like, no one wears masks anywhere on the plane, on Amtrak. I'm like the only one. So
it's incredible.
It's the last thing I'll say is please get the vaccine. It just came out. Even if you got vaccinated, like look at Jen, for example. I'm glad Jen is making herself be the halal guinea pig for the rest of us. This latest variant and plus this flu that my entire family got. I got the flu vaccine. This flu is terrible. We've had it for like 3.5 weeks. Please get the vaccine. That was my PSA. I just had to put it out there. And I want to thank you for mentioning it because no one talks about COVID. Even though it's an ongoing pandemic that has killed 1 million Americans.
I try, like I do quick hits once in a while and I update people that X number of people are still dying every day. That's almost every week, almost as many people die from COVID as died on September 11th. This is still a crisis. And like I get flagged on YouTube for mentioning COVID. I don't know why. So it is really important because as you know, none of us wants to get it. I've not had it yet. Plenty of people haven't had it yet. It is possible to do.
I haven't.
Well, I was going to say it's possible to do without having no life. But
after 2.5 years, I got it on the Labor Day weekend, right? Like at an outside a family gathering with a small group of family, and it was an outside event, and I got COVID for the first time. Like Jen, was able to work through, didn't go on any of the antivirals because my symptoms were not that bad and I don't have any pre-existing conditions. But I'll tell folks that, like, yes, I agree with Jen. I agree with Wash. Like, I continue to talk about it on my show. I continue to have doctors on to talk about it because I think that it's important. We're not talking about the implications of long COVID and how it's affecting people, how it's going to affect generations to come, how it's going to affect our workforce, people's ability to get disability, right? Because you're unable to work. Because in some cases, people have migraines that last 2, 3, 4 hours, can't look at screens, can't, process information. It's a living virus that is moving around in our bodies. It's only been on the planet for 2.5 years.
And we don't understand long COVID at all.
We still don't, and we don't understand it because it's only been around for 2.5 years. So the implications that will come in 5 years, in 10 years, matter. So continue to be safe and be as safe as possible. Get vaccinated, get every friggin' new vaccine that comes out, because as Wash said, every new variant, the vaccines that we have available are dealing with what is predominant, right? And so every new variant is going to require a new tweak to a vaccine. So the more that we can, use what's readily available, the safer we will all be.
And the longer this goes on, the more mutations there will be, the stronger the virus will get, et cetera, et cetera. And, to Waj's point earlier, please start giving a shit about your fellow human beings. I mean, I'd care if, yes, I don't want to get COVID, right? Of course I don't. But I don't want to risk giving it to somebody else who might be immunocompromised or live with a child who's immunocompromised. I mean, and, we don't have to keep going on about this because probably most of our listeners are on board. But one of the most disturbing things, and I'm going to link this up to one of the other things we're going to talk about today, is when this feeling of fellowship, when civic responsibility just kind of dropped out of the conversation. And apparently it is now kind of considered pathetic, weak, or woke to give a shit about other people. It's just kind of stunning to me. And it's because so many people didn't care about themselves, didn't care about their children, their friends, their coworkers, et cetera, et cetera. We're still dealing with this 2.5 years on. So that just seems to be part and parcel of what we're seeing in Republican politics, certainly. And, in situations like Russia too, I mean, and how that's impacting everything. We are living in an environment in which the Supreme Court is hearing the Merrill case, and they are poised to take yet another sledgehammer to the Voting Rights Act and effectively end voting rights for Black Americans. We are living in a country now in which women are de facto and de jure second-class citizens, and in at least half of the states, that actually is having an impact on women's day-to-day lives. We see women being denied access to healthcare, which is what abortion is. We're seeing children who are victims of incest and rape being denied access to healthcare, on and on and on and on. And yet, and all of this, by the way, is the result of one party gerrymandering, cheating, lying, and stealing. And yet, we are 5 weeks out from an election. They may well win because we don't care anymore about being good citizens or citizens of this country, citizens of the world. Gas prices are high. Yeah, but there's a reason for that. There's a war, an illegal war being waged against one of our allies, which is probably like one of the, if the domino of Ukrainian democracy falls, we're in a world of hurt. So, I mean, we should be thinking it's a small price to pay, or we should be working together to figure out ways to mitigate the impact on Americans who do suffer when gas goes up 10 cents a gallon, right?
So you feel entitled, though. When you have a lot of people who feel that they are entitled, no matter what, then you're not going to find empathy. You're going to find tribalism, and that's the problem with the Republican Party.
No, the problem is that has been. It's a weird word to use in this context, but those qualities have been nurtured. Those qualities have been focused on, and those qualities are compulsory now if you want to be successful in the Republican Party. So, and it makes me wonder, and Waj, I'll start with you. We very often talk about, not well, people talk about the people in the middle. I don't, the independents, I don't think they exist really. But we talk about blocks of voters who can swing elections, right? And I think suburban white women have been a predominant group in the last few election cycles. So is the economy and the ways in which the right lies about quote unquote law and order the most lawless Republican Party in modern history? Like, is that's more important to them than their daughter's bodily autonomy? That's more important to them than gun safety. I'm having a really tough time.
So we have
grappling
to
with
look at
this.
history, and we have to look at trends, and we have to look at the data. And what I'm about to say right now always gets me exquisite hate mail. And I know it gets me hated from a lot of suburban white moms. So just bear with me.
Yeah.
It's not all white moms. It's not all suburban whites. We love the whites. Some of my favorite whites are moderate suburban whites.
Some of my favorite whites.
Historically,
we thank you, by the way.
Yeah, Cliff is my favorite white. Second is Mary. Then
I'm not suburban. How dare you?
Only because Cliff is from the Rust Belt, and we all know he's the real American.
I'm from New York, though, so
I'm that guy who's in the diner every time the the New York Times comes out here. I'm in every one of those diners, just so you know.
I'm from New York City, so I don't count.
Yeah, you don't count. Yeah, you're not real. So the data shows that since the 1950s, white women have predominantly voted for Republican candidates, especially when it comes to Republican presidential candidates, except 2 times. One time for Clinton and Lyndon B. Johnson.
Right.
White women, slim majority, white women who are listening and watching us right now, I see in the comments, not all, but a majority of white women voted for Trump. Mm-hmm. After 4 years of vulgarity, misogyny, homophobia, racism, criminality, what happened in 2000? More white women voted for Trump, and it was actually white suburban dads, their partners, who went for Biden.
Yep.
The phenomenon, and oftentimes, people are trying to figure out why this has happened. There's been much data on this, is that white women have oftentimes been segregation's constant gardeners, a fantastic metaphor written by an author, right? That they have chosen whiteness and the protection of white supremacy and patriarchy because they believe that aligning themselves with that power is better for them, their children, their sons, and their husbands in the long run. So they are the cultural validators of patriarchy. The Equal Rights Amendment was killed thanks to women. Yep. Phyllis, how do you pronounce her last name? Yeah, whatever.
Just call her.
Say the bad word. It's okay.
Yeah. She's an asshole.
Yeah. So coming to your point, Mary, even in Virginia right here, I've been warning about this for like years, that I knew Youngkin was going to win based on the CRT scare. I'm like, white women and suburban women are going to go for Youngkin, and people are like, oh, you're crazy, Waj. No, he's got this. McAuliffe's got this. So what we're witnessing right now is a historic trend, ladies and gentlemen, where a slim majority of white women vote against their own rights, their own daughters' rights, and against the liberty and dignity of people of color because they believe aligning themselves with power is in their best interest. Now, with abortion, the hope is, and I'm going to be slightly skeptical when it comes to these suburban women, white women. The hope is that this is the first generation of women who will have less rights than the previous generation. And maybe by seeing the Supreme Court, these regressive extremists wearing black robes, taking away their rights and signaling, oh, we're also going to take away contraceptives and marriage equality, take them literally and seriously. Will that shift even 2 to 3%, Mary, of these women to do the right thing? Now, just the way the electoral colleges, the malapportioned Senate, gerrymandering, as you mentioned, that small shift of the independents, the undecided, and 2% of white women, that could be the election right there.
Yep.
And so it's turnout for the Democrats, plus winning enough of these, just a slim slice of these independents or suburban white women, and then you could win. And for people of color, last thing I'll say, and this might hit hard for some folks, especially white women, what we've always said is, will enough white people do the less crazy thing in America? Will enough white people choose the less crazy self-destructive path? There's only so much that we can do. White folks, you got to do something too. And so if you're white and you're listening right now, talk to your family, like at these, on the WhatsApps, at the dinner tables, convince just a couple of them. And if that creates a ripple effect nationally, you can win the House and you can win the Senate. I did not mean to offend white folks, but you asked me, Mary. I had to be honest.
Listen,
hurts.
if
I actually
you're a
mean to
white
offend white
person,
people.
I do too. I totally do. Because
I'm like,
listen,
I'm so confused.
if you're offended by that, you're part of the fucking problem, right?
Yes.
So look in the mirror. And, you know, Charlotte, the other thing that also continues to be troubling is the extent to which it seems for Republicans, the impetus for supporting a candidate is that they be as horrible as possible. We know that Herschel Walker is an abusive, violent liar, who, and this, I mean, I couldn't care less that the guy paid for an abortion for a woman he impregnated. I care about the fact that he's totally anti-choice. And we have Oz, what's his name in New Jersey, running for governor of Pennsylvania.
Oz killing puppies.
Mehmet Oz, yes, he apparently kills puppies, and probably worst of all, Ron DeSantis is wearing white boots after Labor Day when white they don't even exist, do they?
He's part of the Lollipop Guild.
Anyway, yeah. So Charlotte, what is the argument at this point? We've got 5 weeks. Is it really just some people want as much cruelty and bullying as possible because they've bought into this bullshit about the danger of wokeness or something?
I think it's been clear for many years now that the attraction that the Republican base has to these leaders is that they give them permission to engage in their worst impulses.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all it's about. You know, they don't support Trump because of some value system. They support Trump because he gives them permission to not give a shit about anyone else. Because for a long time, you know, the center of American politics, American government and gravity has been the presidency. The presidency is supposed to set the example. Conservative or progressive, there's supposed to be a value system in the White House, some kind of proactive ideology moving something towards something else. And with Trump, you have the complete opposite. You don't have a value system. The only point of his presidency is it's okay to be cruel. It's okay to not care about others. It's okay to be selfish and self-centered, which I think is the biggest one, by the way, more than anything else. It's selfishness and self-centeredness. And on the other hand, we have Democrats articulating a path forward, articulating a vision for America that doesn't leave anybody behind, that brings people together, regardless of who they are and regardless of their ideology. You know, the message of Democrats needs to be for the next 5 weeks, look at what they're trying to take away and look at what we're fighting for.
Yeah.
And that's all it comes down to. If they do that, we're going to win. We will in a landslide.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that it is helpful, though, to figure out a way for Democrats to figure out a way not to waste time on voters who, as Wash said earlier, only care about their tenuous relationship to power and white privilege. So
yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, the focus on getting the base out. Give the base something to fight for. Give grassroots folks something to fight for. Give young people something to fight for. Give young women of color something to fight for. Give the LGBTQ community something to fight for, and engage in our fights instead of being afraid to because of some so-called fucking culture war. I am not a culture war. I am a human being.
Right.
And I deserve equal rights. And so does everyone on this panel. And we should stop.
Maybe not Brian and Cliff, but that's a subject.
Well, we'll
hey, I'm a Jew. All right. Come on.
But seriously, I'm very serious about this. We keep seeing framing from national journalists that depict our humanity, the basis of our humanity, as a valid argument for debate. And folks, that is incredibly fucked up. And I am so tired of it. I am so tired of trans kids all around the country in schools being referred to en masse as a culture war. That is ridiculous. It is unacceptable. And we need to call out every fucking reporter who accepts that framing. It is deeply irresponsible and dangerous.
It's incredibly dangerous.
Can I say, I'm so sorry, Mary. You know, I've never heard it said that way, even though it's so blunt, honest, direct, and eloquent. And I just feel like it's something that you just gave me a gift where, I can use that where you said, like, I'm not a culture war, I'm a human being. Like, that's, and Democrats, and I mean, yes, number one. And number two, I think Democrats and the rest of us need to acknowledge that this is not just talking points or politics. These are human beings with lives at stake. But so I just want to say that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, hang on a second, Brian, because I want to apologize because I shouldn't have joked. I wasn't joking about Charlie's point, but it was not the right time to be funny.
I didn't even notice.
You're good. Well, because it wasn't that funny. But it is an incredibly serious point, and it's related a lot to many of the issues we've seen through the years where the right, they don't have any policy proposals that help the American people. They literally have nothing to run on, so they have to make shit up. And they always do this at the expense of marginalized communities. And very often, the Democrats, for reasons I'm not entirely sure I understand, let them set the agenda, let them co-opt language in a way that's also dangerous, and basically keep saying to their base, now is really not the time to make waves. We need to go with the straight old white guy, or, we'll deal with voting rights next cycle or what have you. And the can keeps getting kicked down the road. And really, though, what we're talking about is what you just said, Charlotte. We're talking about asking human beings to accept to accept quietly the postponement of their full humanity, which is not what is supposed to happen in this country, theoretically, because obviously it's happened for centuries now. It's just that the targets keep changing. Yes, Brian, it's kind of hard to take you seriously. Please take those off. And also, by the way, you're going to get sued for copyright or whatever trademark. No, I know. Reddy's a great guy.
Sweetheart. Look, all I want to say is that Waj, you said you were going to make white people or white women angry. You didn't mean to.
Wait, that was. I'm sorry. I'm gonna pull back the. That was Waj's fault because he told you that you had to put.
Yes, he told me I had to wear them.
Okay.
And then Danielle said, "Yeah, you do want to make white people angry." Look, I want to make everybody angry. I'm tired of this shit. Basically, look, it boils down: are human beings incomprehensible to other humans? And the fact of the matter is, if you listen to politicians who try to push each one into a different corner, we are. But that's not the fact. That's not the case. I've spent the last month off and on traveling, talking to voters and traveling with politicians, including Jamie Raskin, who is all over the country. And I got news for you. I think the Democrats may indeed, I'm optimistic, but I think they may hold on to the House because I think there is a lot of people out there. There are a large number of people out there who are going to vote. And at the end of the day, we all know what the issues are. The issues are well defined. The whole thing is getting out to vote. And if you don't use it, you're gonna lose it. And the Supreme Court is going to take it away. And Republican lawmakers, if they're allowed to stay in office, will take it away. And they are playing upon fear. And the only thing you have in your arsenal is to get your ass out and fucking vote. And that's what it boils down to. The issues are defined. At the end of the day, who do you want? Now, you may argue that Donald Trump is a piece of crap, and I'm with you. And then you may argue that Biden is barely better than him, and it's a low bar to cross, and I'm with you with all that. Screw all that nonsense. At the end of the day,
barely?
Just vote. Get out. If there are more Democrats and more people who respond to human rights and respond to treating people decently than Republicans. And in fact, there are Republicans, and I've spoken with them, who despise Democrats, right? And they say, well, but here's what they say. They hate me. I want to vote Republican because black people hate me, brown people hate me. And that's not the case. What it is no one's listening to anyone anymore. And there are poor white people who only, and it was Lyndon Johnson who said, make a poor white person feel they're better than a poor black person, and you'll get their vote every time. But what I've seen from poor white people is they're sick of it too. They just want to know that they're part of the party. You'll get them. Get out and vote. If there's anything that should be said, but in 5 weeks in the run up to this election, is get your ass out. I can't say it enough, and vote. There are more votes on the Democratic side and on the side of decency than there are on the side of Josh Hawley, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and all those, and Lauren Boebert and Mitch McConnell and Jim, Bend Over Jordan, all those assholes that basically should be put in a rubber room for the rest of their life, wearing short pants, sucking soda through a straw, and crying into the wind. Screw them. Vote them the fuck out, and then you won't have this problem. Sorry, there's my rant.
That's an image.
So I'll probably piss everybody off with that, but just vote.
I want to say something here because I think that it's actually really important, which is that we continually make the assumption that everyone understands what is at stake because we make our lives and our jobs about trying to explain to people what is at stake. The reality is, and I want to go back to what Charlotte had said earlier about our humanity, and the point of fascism and authoritarianism, and the point of what Republicans are doing, and the point of white supremacy is to dehumanize people who do not look like them, who do not love like them, who do not show up like them. And so when we have conversations and all we do is talk about statistics, when we talk about, trans kids as an issue, or the Don't Say Gay bill, as opposed to explain the narrative and doing the hard work of actual storytelling, which is to put actual people in the places of these larger culture wars, like we missed the fucking point, right? Because all we're doing is saying that we can go back and forth and volley our humanity with these people with trying to throw statistics at them. And I'm like, no, I actually want to tell the stories of the kids that are afraid to go to school, or the kids that were sitting down with their parents and asking them, with same-sex parents and saying, so if they take away your marriage, does that mean that we're not a family? And does that mean that the government can take us away? And there are people right now who are having to figure out the response to those questions that they don't really have the fucking answer to, because they can't tell their kids, no, it'll be okay, because they don't fucking know. So my point here is that we can't continue to say to ourselves that everyone knows what is at stake, because it is those people that are most marginalized who are the ones that know what's at stake, because our lives and our livelihood and our humanity has always been up for debate and up for vote. So it is up for those people who have never up until now Roe v. Wade has been overturned, that white women want to open up their eyes and be like, oh my God, you mean something can happen to me too? Yes, something can fucking happen to you. And the men that you have been propping up your entire lives are not going to sit around and be there to protect you. Ain't everybody flying around to all of these states to go get abortions because everybody don't have that kind of fucking money. So the reality here is I am going to call white people out. I call white women out all the fucking time, because I'm tired of the conversation. You want to waste energy telling me not all white people, when you should be spending your energy going to organize your own, instead of telling me what it is that I need to do in order to make you fucking feel better. That's the reality of where we are. And that's why people need to wake up.
Can I jump in for 1 second?
Hang on 1 second, Cliff. I just want to reiterate, anybody, as Danielle just said, who wastes our time saying not all men, not all white people, really need to fuck off. I mean, this is serious. It is a dodge. It is, and I think it's also an admission. If you say that, you're telling me something about yourself that you don't want me to know, but that I now know. So again, I think part of we're in a similar place to the place we were in before the 2020 election. There are lots of people we need not to waste our time on.
Yes.
Cliff, go ahead.
I was going to say, look, I mean, even what we've seen in the Trump years, and I mean, you can keep taking it back to earlier iterations of Republicans. It feels like the first salvo was with Reagan, and hey, look, there's no never Trumpers here to argue with me. And the thing is that, they push this atomization, this sort of rugged individuality, this radicalization of people. You can do whatever you want. you shouldn't feel any obligation to anybody else, because if they can do that, it is much easier than to take the stereotypes of Black people, Jewish people, Indian people, LGBTQ community, and make people only care about themselves and not care about anybody else. And so now they're not just, oh, I only care about my taxes. I don't give a shit about climate change either. I don't care about, I mean, that only affects you. COVID, that only affects you. I don't worry about that. And this has been a long-term project. I mean, probably even going Goldwater back to when he sort of said a lot of these things. But it sort of, Reagan really kind of pushed it. And Trump was almost his second iteration, or you could call Gingrich that, and maybe Trump the third one. And so we get to this point where right now, if we can make the thing is that talking about people as human beings, doing what I think everybody here has said, humanizing people, right? I'm not your culture, or not only are you going to reach more people, again, fuck the people you'll never reach. There are a lot of people out there, they're not these sort of moderate swing voters. They're people that don't pay close attention, have hard lives, are working hard, are doing things. And sometimes they're just not sure about everything. And we're not getting the message to them. We're not reaching out to them and making and humanizing. And I know it shouldn't have to be done, but our media fucking sucks, so it does have to be done. Where we're not humanizing people, making them realize, the person next to you is a human being. They may look different, they may love different. And, like I saw it here, talk about it in Cincinnati, where we've got a part Indian, part Tibetan mayor, Aftab Purval, who went door to door, and there were so many stories of people that hated him before they even talked to him. And by the time they were done talking to him, granted he has some charisma or whatever, but by the time they're done talking to him, they're like, he's like me. He's worried about things like me. And so when we do that, and we fight for people's humanity as part of our public good, as we're in this together, that there's a common good, is what democracy was based on. I mean, there's such a narrative there about that, us all coming together. That is the vision. That is what this is, democracy, and what our country is supposed to be about. We haven't lived up to it, but what we can now. And I think, so it's not, so the last thing I'll say is this sort of shit where you're like, well, we got to be moderate to reach the swing voters. No, you can turn people out in the same way you can reach people who aren't sure they're going to vote for, which is by talking about the importance and humanity of people in this democracy together who care about each other and are fighting about these key issues. You do that, not only will you win more white voters, and okay, let's say white Christian straight voters. Look, like 25% of Jews still vote Republican, which is insane to me. 35% of the Latino community still votes Republican, which is insane to me. 20% of the LGBTQ community still votes Republican, which is insane to me. Even groups there's got to be swing voters or people like, well, I'm not sure. Talk to everybody. Talk about our common humanity, and have that be the narrative under which we speak about issues like choice, like the fact that we're all fucking human beings, and we're working hard, and we're trying to, to just do a little bit better for our families. So,
and Josh, I'm going to go to you. I just want to frame this in this way. As I said, it's figuring out who to ignore, and it's understanding that there is no unifying with certain people. In fact, I think one of the purposes of liberal democracy is to contain the people who have been empowered by the Republican Party over the last at least 6 years, but certainly, especially in the last 6 years, right? And understand that at least 25% of the country are people with whom we cannot make common cause, who will never give a shit about the humanity of people who are different from them. And, understand that the psychology of these people very often is that it isn't that they wanted to do better than other people. All they care about is that other people do worse, as long as it's the right people.
Yep.
Anyway, Waj, go ahead.
Going back to a point that you mentioned, why Democrats kind of cede the ground. And I think if we have to be honest about it, you have to hit the nail on the head. Why do Republicans get away with it? Every midterm, every election around this time, if you've noticed, Republicans double down on crime, national security, and immigration.
Yep.
All right. And they always portray Democrats as being weak. What Democratic candidates do, especially white Democratic candidates, Bill Clinton did this in order to court the voter that Cliff was talking about. They then double down and say, we're even tougher on crime. Mm-hmm. We're going to smear Sister Soldier. You know, a black woman, easy pinata. That's an old head reference for those of you who remember. Clinton came out because they said, whoa, he likes the blacks too much. He was on the Arsenio with the saxophone. And Clinton's like, Sister Soldier, how dare you? You rap and you're so dangerous. Sister Soldier's like, what? And now, thankfully, you know, karma is good. Sister Soldier's killing it, being a writer, you know, writing fictional stories and a best-selling writer. But it happens. Joe Biden did it, right, with the crime bill. And so you need to have Democrats finally stand up proactively, finally, in my opinion, on immigration, crime, and national security. You need to have a unified, bold voice where you lead with progressive values and say, whatever happens, we're throwing the gauntlet down. We're going to take the mantle on this, and we're going to attack Republicans. You guys talk about crime.
Amen.
You're backing a criminal president who stole thousands of documents from the friggin' White House. You're talking about a guy who's twice impeached. You're talking about Ron DeSantis, who probably broke laws, kidnapping, you know, migrants. You're talking about Jim Jordan. You're talking about Matt Gaetz. And by the way, immigrants, going back to Charlotte's point, are human beings. This is a country of immigrants. People come here for a better life. These folks are just looking for a better deal, just like the Irish and the Italians. You do not hear this message, ladies and gentlemen. What happens instead, Republicans realize it's a weak spot for Democrats. We're going to hit them for being weak on crime and immigration. Democrats get terrified. They're like, oh no, Chuck and Cliff drinking real coffee in the Rust Belt we can't sit there and be like, oh, we like the darkies and the immigrants. So instead of leading with these values, they get terrified, and what happens? They make themselves vulnerable. It happens again and again and again, Mary. And you know, we mentioned this, I think, a couple of weeks ago on your podcast. You know, I was on a great podcast called In the Thick, co-hosted by Julio Ricardo Varela and Maria Hinojosa, OG journalist. And they thought with Biden's election, they're like, oh, maybe now the Democrats will do something on immigration. I'm like, nope, they're going to punt it, because they always punt it, just like they're punting on the LGBTQ issue, right?
Yep.
They punt it precisely for the theme that we said, is because they're so terrified that this white voter or the moderate voter will not go along with them. Same thing they said, guys, with abortion. Until the base said, F you, we want passion. Once the base said it, and once you got some messengers like AOC, Mallory McMurrow, Fetterman, I'm just giving you some examples, Gavin Newsom, people are like, oh, thank you for connecting the dots. Thank you for expressing our values. Thank you for showing the passion. And you won over folks. If you don't tell the story, you can't blame people for not knowing the story.
Yes.
And so this is where I think Democrats have an opportunity. They're going to fail this midterms like they already have. And this is why, if you see the shift, Mary, of why like the polls have turned from August, it's regular. It always tightens. Yeah. But it's tightened around this issue, if you've noticed. It's going to keep happening again and again and again until we decide that, say, you know what? We're not going to win over those folks. We don't care. These are our values. We're going to be bold about it. We're going to craft a message. We're going to win people over. Multicultural coalition, humanity. Yeah. And we're going to be bold about it. And we're going to win. And I think you're going to get enough people where it will win over those independents, those people on the side, and galvanize the base. I had to say that.
Yeah, absolutely. Danielle has to leave in a couple minutes, so I just want to see if you have any last words. Danielle.
Yeah, just the thing that I would add on to what Waj is saying, but I will say this because I'm more apocalyptic than everyone else, which is the fact that like we're not getting another bite at this apple after midterms. Like the midterm elections, like this is it. And to Brian's point about vote, you know, this is it. Like the reality is that, you know, the slate of fascists that are being run by the Republican Party, you know, from the state, local, all the way up to the Senate, like they have their judges in place. They have their election deniers in place. And if you don't understand, like America will exist, but the America that you have come to understand and learn and pledge allegiance to is no longer going to exist. So, you know, folks, if you have a voting plan, great. But go organize and get with every single person from your family, from your friends, your colleagues, the kids that are on the block that just turned 18, like whoever it is and wherever you are. Let's not just take the fact that you're in a blue state or a blue area, because if you notice what the Supreme Court is doing to blue cities and blue states and overturning their gun restriction laws and overturning a whole lot of things that allow us to be safe and protected in dense areas, this is the last election. Yep. And I say, it is not hyperbolic to say so. It is the last free and fair election, is this midterm election. We do not have another bite at the apple here. We're not getting another chance. So vote.
Absolutely. Thanks, Danielle. See you next week, hopefully.
Hi, Danielle.
Yeah, and I mean, we could say the same thing about climate change, right? We ignore it, and yes, the planet will still exist. In fact, the planet will probably be much better off, but we won't. So we ignore the crisis democracy is in right now. And yes, America will still exist, but not, well, it's never been a democracy. So it's always unwieldy to have this conversation. But the promise that this country has held will be gone completely. And we've seen that the danger. Well, I mean, Donald is just like the poster child for what happens when you don't hold a criminal accountable for his crimes ever. But we're seeing at the judicial level the danger of allowing corrupt people to game the system when there's one judge who is preventing anything from going forward at the great risk of national security. I'm talking about Eileen Cannon. Yes, Brian, go ahead.
I'm just going to say I'm probably more apocalyptic than even Danielle was. Not only do I think
we're going to all try to out apocalyptic each other now.
I mean, it depends what we're talking about.
I think the signs, the tea leaves are there that the United States may break into different countries eventually if we don't find common ground. There have been votes. See, I disagree. I don't think it should.
Well,
there is a united.
I don't. Hang on. Let me just hang on one second. I don't mean it should. Like that's something to be desired. I mean I've been thinking increasingly that it's just untenable because regionally we're so different. The danger, of course, is that there are people who will suffer even worse than they're suffering now if the American South splits off and becomes yet another closed.
It's also, can I just say in 2 seconds, it's not as clear cut as it used to be. I'll go right back to you, Brian, and you know this, Brian, because you're from Kentucky, and the difference now isn't just north and south. Where I am in Cincinnati, we joke about the Midwest. We voted with the city of Cincinnati, and even my county voted 70% to 80% for Biden. It's just if you go an hour in that direction, so you can't just have the South cut off. It's rural versus, in a case, back to Brian.
Well, I was going to say that I agree with you, Mary, that I don't think it's, and Cliff, it's not a regional thing, but here's where it is for me. Having just returned from overseas and seeing the future, what is one potential future for the U.S., which is when you have oligarchs and rich politicians. Again, I'll quote the fact that there's no, we're worried about no water and no lights and gas after a hurricane for 10 days. In 2 years, they haven't had it in Beirut, in Lebanon. And while it is one of the poorest nations on the planet, 40% of the people living below the poverty level, 4 of the 10 richest people in the Middle East. And this takes into account, states that have a lot of oil, and Lebanon isn't one of them. 4 of the 10 richest people are politicians in Lebanon. Yeah. That's where that's what we're facing here. So the division here is among those that have and have not. And it's more of a division between rural and urban but what I do see, and look, I know it's real easy to get angry, and trust me, I get angrier than anyone sometimes at it, but we have to understand and see across the aisle as to what other people's issues are, even the people that we don't like and disagree with, because there is some commonality. And if we're going to hold the United States together and not be as apocalyptic as I fear that we will be, I think at some point in time we have to recognize everyone's humanity. I know that's a pie in the sky thing, but if we don't, then we're doomed. And that's why I agree that this particular midterm election is without a doubt the greatest inflection point in my lifetime. And if you just get out and vote, I stress it again and again and again, and listen to your neighbor, get out and vote. And there are more registered Democrats than Republicans. Vote and put the bastards in the dirt.
Yeah. And I want to shift, of course, I want to shift topics in a second, but Charlotte, I want to go to you because, you know, on the one hand, it heartens me that you do seem more hopeful about November than you have in the past. And I guess maybe it's my turn this week to be feeling dark. I'm feeling very dark. I'm not worried. I mean, of course I'm worried about November, but I'm not cynical. I haven't given up, but it's more the atmosphere in which we're living right now. You know, I think that we acknowledge people's humanity when we say, yeah, you hate me, you don't want me to exist or have rights, but I want you to have healthcare. I want the federal government to take care of your state when a natural disaster strikes. I want to make sure that your kids don't get slaughtered in schools, et cetera, et cetera. I think we acknowledge their humanity all the time as they try to eradicate ours. And yet, you know, then we've got people with real power, like Ron DeSantis, who is constantly trying to take away the rights of marginalized people and endangering them, literally endangering their lives, and kidnapping human beings, as Waj said earlier, and basically not even protecting. And I guess, you know, some people like that shit, but he's also not doing his job to protect the people of his state from a hurricane. You know, he voted against aid for Sandy, but, you know, I guess was willing to take money for Florida, which is totally cool. But Rubio didn't bother to show up for the vote. And Rick Scott, the other senator from Florida, voted against aid for his own state, as did every single Republican congressperson.
What was the county where he refused to call an emergency?
I don't remember the name of it, but like hundreds of people might be dead.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't want to cut off Charlotte. I just meant like that too, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he could have. The beautiful thing about hurricanes is that, you know, they're coming well ahead of time, and you can usually be pretty accurate about how serious they're going to be. We knew, he knew. So, Charlotte, I mean, do make of that what you will. It wasn't exactly a question. It was more just a kind of state of play that I'm having a really hard time grappling with.
Yeah, you know, I've been thinking about this a lot lately over the last 2 weeks, and with this resurgence of Democratic support, I'm very optimistic about next month. I am. I think that we will increase our majority in the Senate, and I think we stand a damn good chance of keeping the House. But it feels like there's something missing lately. And I feel that it's the sense of, I guess, joy or hope for the future.
Yeah.
I feel like fear is what's driving us to the polls right now. And that is a motivator, and often it's a life-saving motivator. But I remember what it was like, right. I remember what it was like to go to the ballot box because I was hopeful about the future. I wanted to see something materialize with my vote.
Yeah.
And right now it just seems like we're trying to save our own save our asses, basically. That's why we're going to the ballot box this time. And so, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I think it would be really smart for the Democratic Party to get its shit together and really lean into the joy of what could be in our future. You know, the kind of place where we don't have first line workers, whether they be medical or on the supply chain or grocery stores or whatever. You know, we don't have these folks who are making less than $20 an hour living in poverty while they're saving our asses through a pandemic. We need to offer some kind of future that gets people excited. Does anyone feel excited about the future right now? No one feels excited about the future.
No,
and
I'm optimistic like you.
And let me finish this. I really think that President Biden would be very, very smart to lean into some kind of, you know, look at every fucking thing we did in the last 2 years. Give us more power. Not to the extent that the Democrats should. Brian.
I'm sorry, but to your point, you're right.
I'm not finished, sir. Let me finish.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I think that President Biden needs to adopt some kind of like Reagan-esque Morning in America message. I really do. I think that is the key here. People are starving for hope and excitement. That's where President Biden and the Democratic Party needs to put their energy. And with that, I'm done.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's fucking brilliant. I just need to say, because I think that has to be the positive side of the also us pointing out on the negative side the stuff that they're going to do.
The problem in the White House isn't
Brian,
the problem in the White
Cliff,
House.
Cliff, are you done talking?
Yeah, I'm done now.
I'm sorry, but all of this is great ideas. I love them. I think they're fantastic. Charlotte, that's probably the nicest idea, greatest idea I've heard in a long time. Sell it to Ron Klain, because he's the one that's keeping Biden from speaking more often. He's the one that runs the show when it comes to how the White House communicates and the Democrats communicate. And as far as I'm concerned, he's the biggest problem in the White House.
Well, all we can do here, Brian, is say what we think should happen. Like, I can't, I can't promise you I can kidnap Ron Klain and make him understand.
Get him fired.
I'm just saying what Charlotte was saying was perfect. I'm sorry, I thought.
No, go ahead, Charlotte.
No, please, Charlotte.
No, I just wanted to say really quickly, Brian, I totally respect your political takes and analysis and whatnot. But I do want to point out, I adore Ron Klain. I think he's a wonderful human being. I think he's done an extraordinary job in the White House over the past years, and I just want to be clear about that. That's all.
I appreciate that. I disagree.
I'll just say I don't know who the problem is. I just know that there's
a problem.
I don't know that much, and I know Ron a little bit, and I've got nothing against Ron. I'm just simply saying whoever it is, because you're seeing Gavin Newsom do it. You saw Eric Swalwell get up with Ilhan Omar and do it and join. Like, I am starting to feel better about Democrats proactively stepping forward and responding when we need to, and stopping this crap where we just refuse to message. But I haven't seen, and even Biden with the semi-fascism, but I haven't seen enough of it. I still have some optimism, though. I'm going to say that. I mean,
yeah, I do too. Waj, I'm going to get to 1 second. I think one of the critical reasons that what Charlotte's saying is so important and urgent is that and I think one of the reasons I'm having such a tough time lately is it really feels like we're living through the end of history. And that's a tough thing to live with on a day-to-day basis, especially when you have to pay attention. And the Democrats absolutely need something to counter that feeling. It's not enough to talk about your accomplishments. You have to talk about what they mean for our future, as Charlotte said. It's so because we have to pull ourselves out of this morass that think about all of the horrible things that have happened in the last 4, 5, 6 years. Okay. It's overwhelming. People need not the kind of glib hope, but real hope to overcome the really debilitating things that we've had to experience to motivate us to get out there and vote, because the only hope for our future, for our children's future, is the Democratic Party at this point. So Waj, make of that what you will, but I also do think that we should end on a slightly less grim note. You brought up the Herschel Walker, Christian Walker. God knows what the fuck's going on there, but it's sort of fascinating.
Yeah, no, I was saying is, when people don't have hope, you need to have faith, and you need to have faith in something. And I think it's the human beings, the way we operate is you need a hopeful narrative, something to hang your hat on. And right now you need something tangible, right? And I hate to quote Churchill because he was racist, but it reminds me of me of World War II, right? Where it's survival is victory right now. Survival itself is victory. But even that is not enough. Even the bleakest of times, you need to rally people to imagine a better future. Mm-hmm. And I'm a cautious optimist. I guess I will be the one who ends on the optimistic note, is because I have 3 kids, and I refuse as a father to say, well, I tried my best, but your inheritance is that you'll be really good victims. Learn how to swim, and we tried our best. I mean, no, of course not. I brought them into this world, and I want them to have the best opportunities possible to be a hero of this American story, especially as brown-skinned kids. So we work and we fight like previous generations have, like our parents have. Every generation has had their unique challenges, which is not to say, Mary, that we can't acknowledge the immense challenges that we're facing right now. Climate change, rise of fascism, white supremacy, taking away women's rights, a freaking ongoing pandemic that has killed 1,000 people, right? So I think a balance between acknowledging the challenges, acknowledging people's fear, palatable fear, the fact that people feel like the ground is shifting beneath them, there's nothing holding them afloat, and then also giving them that hopeful narrative and giving them that shared humanity where we're in this together, and the only way out is together and like through. That's the only way out. The only way out of the forest is through the forest. And so I feel like that particular narrative gives people hope while also acknowledging the stark, bleak reality that they're facing, which means that they're not being gaslit. Right. Which goes back to your point, Mary, that it does not feel like a glib Hallmark card that we're just like giving them right now. You empathize with their pain and their suffering, but agreeing with what Charlotte says, you have to give them a little bit more. It's not enough just simply say, do you want to float or do you want to drown? And people are like, well, if you're giving me two choices, I'll choose float. But where am I going to float to? That's the thing, is like, where am I floating to? Where am I swimming to? And that's where I think the rest of us have to come in, check our cynicism and pessimism, and articulate. This is why fiction is important, ladies and gentlemen. This is why not everyone should do STEM. This is why we need writers to imagine the future that we want our children to inhabit. And then the final thing I'll say about the Christian Herschel Walker, here's a test. If you guys aren't following right now, Christian Walker yesterday came out, blasted his father, Herschel Walker, because there was a Daily Beast piece that revealed with all the receipts that Herschel Walker, the pro-life Christian nationalist, paid for his mistress's abortion in 2009. And Republicans, particularly today, said, nobody's perfect. And Christian Walker, his son, who is a MAGA-supporting gay black man, I didn't make that up.
No, you got to watch some of those TikToks. They're insane.
Today came out and said said something very, last night came out today with a video, and last night said that we've had to move 6 times in 6 years because of Herschel Walker's violent tendencies towards me and my mom. I'm sick and tired of it. And my prediction was that MAGA will turn on him just like that and weaponize his blackness and gayness. Mm-hmm. And he doubled down today, just about 20 minutes ago, with a video. My prediction with the cynicism of the Republican Party is that they're going to use him as an unbrainwashed Manchurian candidate, which might be the best pop culture reference I've made, because Herschel Walker is just a vehicle, a mouthpiece. And like I said, Eric Erickson all of a sudden said, well, nobody's perfect. But I do think, and this is where the hope comes in, that enough people in Georgia, just a sliver, will see this and go, this is disgusting. I'm going to sit this out, or I'm going to go for Warnock. I'm not going to vote for this guy. And this is where, when we mobilize the vote, I think this might be enough, Mary. This might be enough, along with some other things, to give Warnock the edge. And that's my hopeful
note.
I would
say so. Yeah, and I'll say quickly, I think Oz, too. I think it's important to point out with the puppies thing. He was gaining in polls towards Fetterman. And I think this is going to, I'm sorry.
Well, you're right.
Killing puppies, doing fucking experiments. So, okay.
Well, listen,
I will say that Herschel Walker is a walking poster child for the need to review the NFL concussion protocols.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and also, not just him, but even people like Donald. We need to figure out why nobody gives a shit about these people. Like, why anybody thought it was a good idea for Herschel Walker to put himself into this position, into running for Senate, a position for which he's wholly unfit, and he's just a disaster. And Waj, you're completely right that he is absolutely just there to give Mitch McConnell another vote. It's a different issue in Georgia. We're talking about, people, how much are people willing to put up with to get a Republican in office? And in Pennsylvania, I do think Fetterman's health issues are playing a factor.
I do, yeah.
But killing puppies should trump recovering from a stroke. One would think, especially since the guy killing the puppies is from New Jersey.
I just keep thinking, don't mess with a Zohan. Here are these puppies. I'm going to kill them.
We live in quite interesting times, as the Chinese proverb or curse would say. So I'm trying to think if I should end on the news that Charlotte just shared with us. Charlotte, you want to tell people what you just...
Well, the New York Times is reporting that Musk and Twitter reached a deal to buy the company at the original price of $44 billion. So it looks like Elon Musk is going to own Twitter.
Oh, for fuck's
Okay,
sake.
the only thing I'm going to say about that is do not leave Twitter. Don't leave Twitter just because, I mean, anybody who owns these companies, they might be worse or better, but none of them is good. So I don't think this solution, and Democrats always seem to do this, the solution is not to cede ground.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to clarify really quickly, and I apologize for this.
No.
Musk has proposed the price, but Twitter is basically obligated to accept at this point because the whole legal issue was over this.
Yeah.
It's not like they haven't signed a paper yet, but
Right.
it's going to happen now.
And Musk could always back out still because it's Musk.
These things take a very long time. Absolutely. And that's what happened last time. I mean, this announcement was made that he was buying Twitter and like billions of people fled and then nothing happened and then it wasn't happening. So it may play out the same way, but even if he does buy it, we've got to stop. Where are we going to go? I mean,
well, you said it right, Mary. We can't cede every piece of ground over to them. We can't. There's too many journalists. There's too much mainstream opinion that's influenced on Twitter. Like we have to. It's not like it's Truth Social or some shit. It's Twitter. We have to stay there.
It's the front line of disinformation, and we got to fight back. We can't just run away.
And is Musk worse than Mark Zuckerberg? I don't think so. I mean, he may be as bad, but he's not worse. Brian, is that good news?
Well, we the James Madison Project and I sued the National Archives to get a Freedom of Information request on the stuff that was seized at Mar-a-Lago, and we are now probably going to have to proceed to trial. They've said that they've released some of it, but that they can't release other parts of it because guess what? Donald Trump didn't give him permission. So it's not the best of news, but we did get some of the information. NARA received more than 50 FOIA requests and has released information on 15 boxes of material, 309 pages that they have forwarded to us, and there are 1,300 pages of emails, 1,303 pages of emails that they have not yet released.
Okay, well, listen, we've got to wrap up, but I think that the hope is that you'll get more. But the moral of that story is keep fighting.
That's right.
Keep fighting.
Oh, we sued him, so yeah,
leave no territory, and pressure works. And again, everybody vote. Get everybody to vote, and keep having conversations. Keep watching our show. Keep watching everybody else's show. Keep reading everybody's stuff. Everybody on this, every Nerd Avenger is incredibly prolific and brilliant, and they're going to guide us to a better future where we will realize the potential of this country. But it's going to take work, and it's going to take paying attention, and it's going to take just persistence. So, and we all have a bad day. I'm having a tough time myself, but as long as there's a fight, there's hope. So thank you so much to Jen Taub, who did not last long today. I hope she's feeling better. Daniel Moody, Waj Ali, Brian Karam, Cliff Schechter, Charlotte Clymer. Thank you all so much.
Love you, Mary.
I love you guys, and
Thanks so much.
See you next week. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
So we didn't really talk about Vladimir Putin too much today, but he's a menace and he needs to be stopped. So there you go. Thank you for joining the Mary Trump Show strategy session with a fair number of Nerd Adventures today. It was good to see everybody. We will be back, of course, next Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. That's at youtube.com/Politicon. And join me this Thursday for a regular show. That's at 7 p.m. Eastern 4 p.m. Pacific, also at youtube.com/Politicon. I just want to remind everybody before I forget that for the very, very, very first time, the Mary Trump Show will be live on stage in Los Angeles at what is it called? I forgot for a second. It's called Dynasty Typewriter. And tickets are on sale. So go check that out. We'll have the link in the show notes. Anyway, back to the Politicon YouTube page. While you're on Politicon's YouTube page, please subscribe. Doesn't cost anything. Like the episode, leave a comment if you want. Ring the bell. That way you'll be sure to get alerted every time new video drops. It could be an episode. It could be a live stream. I've heard a rumor that the January 6th committee will hold its next hearing on either October 13th or 14th. We will, of course, be bringing that to you. We also have our emergency episodes when necessary. Unfortunately, they seem to be necessary more than one would like in a stable democracy. Oh, wait, we're not a stable democracy. So, that's why we're trying to keep you guys up with everything. And of course, I've got my shorter videos coming out once in a while. I'm going to get more consistent with those. And yes, you can listen to this in podcast form on Apple or wherever you get your podcast. Please give the show a 5-star review because 1, I'll be very grateful to you for that. And 2, it does help other people find the show, which is one of our goals. So thank you again to the Nerd Avengers, and thanks to all of you for being here, for your sticking with us, for your comments, and we will see you Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. In the meantime, please stay safe and be kind.
Thank you.